Well, all right, guys, welcome to Invest Smarter, where we're going to be analyzing the newest listings, multifamily investment home listings that hit the market in South Florida today. So these properties have 0 days on market. If there's a deal to be had, this is the time to view it because a good deal does not last, especially in this market. All right, guys. So just a quick rundown on top of my head here is the live feed from the MLS. We're also going to be looking at a couple different stats just so we could analyze this deal correctly. And then on my right-hand side here is the deal calculator. The investometers are in there where we reviewed 9 different statistics or metrics that I like to look at when I am investing in a multifamily. So with that being said, if you're looking for multifamily or you're looking in the future, you're going to be looking for multifamily or investment property, you're going to want to stick around because we're going to go over how I underwrite these properties to make sure that I don't end up with a bad deal. There's a lot of real estate agents that will post and say, hey, this has a 5% cap, a 6% cap, a 10% cap, or this property cash flows, when in reality it doesn't, because they don't take the right expenses into consideration. We do, which by the way, if you guys are interested, check out the show notes. All of our assumptions are there, okay? If there's anything that you think is missing that I'm not listing, let me know and I'll be happy to dive into the guts of the calculator, if you will, and show you exactly how we're calculating these metrics. Well, now that being said, we're not gonna cherry pick anything today, guys. You're gonna see the properties at the same time that I'm seeing them. Okay, and remember, if you see something out there that you like, reach out to your agent and go after it because good deals do not last. Okay, now with that being said, let's go over the first thing that we're going to need to find out, and that's going to be the interest rate that we're at. Okay, and the best way that I know how to do that is I go over here to to Fred, the St. Louis Reserve, right, and I look at this information right here, guys. This is going to be the 30-year mortgage fixed rate for the last, it has like 30 years of data in here, but we're not going to look at all that. We're just looking at this year, how it's kind of gone up and down, which by the way, let me go back. Let's look at the last 5 years because President Trump came out and he said, hey, you know what? Interest rates have never been lower than they have been in the last 5 years. And the question is that true? And let's see, guys, last week, right, on February 26th, I was really excited. I even called my mortgage broker to ask about refinancing rates because it dropped below 6, right? It dropped below 6. And what's the last time that it dropped below 6? It almost touched 6 here in 2023. But the last time it really dropped below 6, as you guys can see here, was around September, October, right? September of 2022. Okay, guys, so a long time has passed before the rates dropped. Now, that being said, a week later, right, the rates went back up. Right now, as of Thursday of last week, so we should get another update tomorrow. But as of Thursday of last week, it was at a 6.11, the average, and that's what we're going to be using in our calculator. So with that being said, let's take a quick look at the actual South Florida market, see how things are moving today. All right, guys, you're looking at my dashboard, and what I have here is a bunch of stats that they give real estate agents on their dashboards. Most agents don't know how to use them. Some of these are kind of like meaningless just because the time frame, right, that the most that they allow you to go is like 7 days. So it doesn't give you a huge like sample. But with that being said, if you look at it enough, you get a good pulse. So if you look at this every day, if you log in every day and you watch this channel every day, right, you'll get a really good pulse of how the market is doing. And so the one metric I always like to look at, and I think most agents, if you're out there and you're watching, you like to look at too, is how many properties came onto the market in the last whatever period you chose, and how many have price decreases, right? If you guys were in the real estate market back in 2020, late 2020, 2021, when prices were just going through the roof, this price decrease bar was like the price increase bar right here. It was tiny. Nobody was decreasing their prices. Everybody was getting their asking price or more, right? No contingencies, no appraisals, no inspection periods. It was the Wild West. It's one of the reasons where we're in right now. But anyway, today we're seeing quite the opposite, right? The amount of price increases is super low, right? It's less than 10% of the amount of properties that are coming onto the market. However, and check this out, guys, and this is a little bit scary-ish. So the amount of new properties that came onto the market is 2,214. The amount of properties that saw a price decrease are actually higher, 2,352. And it's actually a little bit scary for the following reason. For a long time, at least for South Florida, that was not the case. Price decreases were like lagging behind a little bit. It would be like 2,214 new listings, right, in the trailing 7 days, and like 2,100 or 2,000. It was always like, a good percentage shorter than the amount of properties coming onto the market. I would compare that to my partner who works in Tampa, and her MLS would always show, right, more price decreases. For a long time, it's been showing more price decreases than properties coming into the market. And so I would always say, like, hey, Miami's doing better than Tampa, which, it has been, which is, it's true, marginally better, but better. And now I'm starting to see this creep. And so we got to keep an eye on this, guys. But with that being said, that doesn't mean that good properties are not out there, that good deals are not out there. Deals are to be had, right? And you just got to keep in mind when you're looking at a property, perhaps, and when we're evaluating it, is how much could you actually lower, right? Get that owner to lower his price, right? Now, that being said, if we find a 1% deal kind of property, if we find a property that cash flows on day one, even if you're using FHA financing, like, don't wait. Don't go out there and try to like get the seller to like give you even more money off. A good deal is a good deal, because while you're over here sweating with your real estate agent to negotiate hard for you, somebody else is writing a cash offer, or it's just putting it under contract that same day. So if there's a good deal, if the property cash flows, go after it, guys. Of course, do your due diligence. But with that being said, let's get into it. Again, we already went over the layout of how everything works. I go down here and I look at new multis. We're going to look at the new multifamilies in the last 24 hours, guys. Okay. And so we could look at this quickly. I set this up. And I like, when I look at properties, just for shits and giggles, guys, I like to sort by price per square foot, starting with the highest. Usually with the highest, it's not going to work, but you never know. So that's what we do. Let's look at the first one. And you never know, it might really work out, right? So this first one is $650,000, right? The taxes, it's the same price I had the last property I was looking at earlier today. The taxes, however, are $8,544. Square feet, they're saying that their square feet are 815 square feet. That sounds weird. Okay, guys, that sounds weird. And the rents, we don't know the rents yet. So, and they're not putting them here, and they're not publishing them. So we're going to take a look at the rents ourselves. But for now, we'll put 0. Before that, let's take a look at the pictures. Okay, we got one picture, guys. One picture. So it looks like a 1980s duplex, right? Let's look at the listing. 1971, my bad. Probably 815 square feet per side. Yeah. This agent, some agents don't know how to use the MLS. 1630, so that's a real square footage here. Okay, and this guy says that this property that we have no clue what it looks like on the inside, right? That this property rents out for $2,100 on one side and $2,150 on the other side. What do you guys think? Let's take him for his word. Let's see if that would make the deal work. All right, and $2,150 here. All right, guys, let's take a look. Would that be a 1% kind of a property? Again, the 1% rule says it's a good indicator of if the property is going to pencil out or not. And what we're looking for, ideally, is 1% of the purchase price. So the purchase price here is $650,000. We're looking for that 1%. So it means that we're looking for a rent of $6,500. It looks like we're off. How much are we off by? About 35%. This is a 0.65 property. And that, as we see deals, guys, as you see deals, it gives you a good indicator of if the property is going to pencil out again or not. So let's see how the rest of the stats look. The DSCR, this is the debt service coverage ratio. It's a fancy way of saying how much of my mortgage does the rent pay. And in this case, it pays for about 80% of your mortgage. So the rent that you receive, if you just bought this property using a conventional loan, I actually set this one at 20%. Investors usually use 25%, but if you buy it at 20% down payment, it would only cover about 80% of your mortgage, okay? With that being said, the property capitalizes, right? Your cap rate, how fast it capitalizes based on the purchase price and the net operating income, less than 5%. Okay, if you bought this FHA or if you bought this cash, it would just take way too long to see your money double. Okay, guys, it would take way too long. Your equity multiples that you could get, right? So you would invest, something happened here with the calculator, guys. My apologies. Okay, I need to fix that. Okay, so we'll fix that for the next one. But if you look here on the Investometer, it would normally tell you how much, right, the down payment is. And so we could fix that in a little bit, but I'd rather just go through the deal as we go along. Okay, guys. So the next thing here is it's going to take almost 20 years to cash flow, guys. Almost 20 years to cash flow. To start cash flowing, if you buy this FHA, if you buy this using a 10% property or 10% loan, down payment loan, it will take you almost 13 years. If you bought this using a 20% down loan, you would only see cash after almost 9.5 years, right? It's so bad that with an FHA deal, right, you would never actually recover your initial investment in the lifetime of the loan. So it literally broke the calculator here. It's going to take so long. And if you bought this cash, you would get your cash back to be able to reinvest only after 17 years. That's terrible. A good property would be somewhere closer to 10. All right, guys. And also for you more experienced investors, right, we want to know how well the cash that you're investing is working for you. So if you read The Richest Man in Babylon, right, one of the takeaways that I got was that you got to make sure that your money works for you, and you got to make sure that your money works for you, and that your money works really hard for you. And so cash on cash is kind of like that metric. It asks how well is your cash working for you. And you can see here, guys, in the first year, if you bought this FHA, your cash wouldn't be working. You would still be putting money out of pocket. By year 30, yeah, your cash on cash return is about 342%. But this is very leveraged, okay? And it's not something that we're gonna want to look at. This is just a bad deal, right? So 13, I mean, you would, if you bought this cash on cash using cash, your cash on cash using cash is only about 5% the first year. It increases to about 9% on year 15, and by year 30, you're looking at 13%. This is just not very good. And then looking at this using your internal rate of return, which basically calculates what is your return based on the cash that the property gives you, depending on when it gives you that cash, right? And assuming that you cash out at the end of 30 years, you're only seeing about a 7.1% IRR, right? And we're going to be trying to match or improve upon whatever the S&P 500 can give you, right? Because if you're going to take the risk of actually having property, you don't want to have returns that are less than what the S&P could possibly give you. So with that being said, guys, this property is a big fat fail for me. And by the way, I forgot how many properties we're going to look at today. We're looking at 8 properties, guys. So let's put that on the screen. We're looking at 8, and the first one failed. Now let's go through now that you guys know how this all works, let's try to go through these properties faster so you could go on and see if we could find a good deal. You guys can call your agent. By the way, guys, if you have any questions about the deals, the calculator, anything, just put it in the show notes or put it in the comments and I'll make sure to address it. All right, so this property is a fail. Let's get rid of it. Let's look at our next property. All right, we're in Broward County, guys. We're in Broward County. Let's take a quick look at the pictures. Not a fan of the floor, has carpet. These are nice. Okay, bathroom's nice. I mean, it's a little, yeah, it's nice. It's nice. It's got a little old school Florida room. Not a fan of the kitchen, but you know, you can get away with it. All right, well, the property looks to be in pretty good condition. They tell us where it's at. There's a future YMCA here. All right, a park, the property's here. Nice. Corner lot, not bad. Okay. All right, guys. Well, let's look at the actual deal itself. Let's look at the numbers. They want $1.189 million for it. The taxes right now are $12,489. 2,337 square feet. Not bad. For a fourplex, it's quite small. And they're saying that their total rent is $4,325. So these guys must be smoking some kind of rocks, thinking we're going to buy that. Just because, I mean, guys, do the math, right? That's probably a 4% of, you know, a 0.4% property without even having to do a whole lot. Let's look at their details just to make sure that we're on the same page here. And yeah, they said they're getting $1,500 for one. They're getting $1,500 for the other one. They're getting $1,325 here. And then the last one, the owner lives in it, but let's assume that he gets the most amount of money for it too. Just, you know. So $5,825 is what this property can make. Let's look at the stats, guys. 1% rule doesn't even get to a 0.5 of a 1%, right? DSCR, it wouldn't even cover 60% of your mortgage payment. Your cap rate, you're capping at less than 4%. All right, guys, we could go through the rest of this stuff here, but let's just look at, this property doesn't make sense. You would cash flow on this property if you bought this using FHA after 7 months before your loan was completely paid off. All right, guys, if you bought this using a conventional 20% loan, you would only see money coming into hitting your bank account from this property after 19 years. So again, terrible property. Let's drop this one. Let's keep it moving. Let's discard it. Our next property, guys. Our next property is this one right here. It's in Miami-Dade. They want $1 million for it, $995,000. The taxes are similar, $12,707. Square feet, 2,224 square feet. They say it's a duplex. They don't tell us how much the rent is. Okay. It's in a flood zone X, which is nice, right? Because we want, see this AE, it's more risky. Flood insurance is going to cost you a little bit more. And also one thing that I put here, but most duplexes are going to be concrete block type of construction. So let's take a look at the property with that being said. Let's look at the pictures here. Okay, so it's a little worn down, right? Kind of a lot of worn down. This property hasn't had any TLC. Nobody's painted it in probably 10, 15 years. It's in the corner. It's a corner lot again, so it's nice. Okay, and these are renderings, guys. Oh no, front of structure, next door townhomes. Okay, so I bet you that the seller is thinking like, hey, they're selling these for $1 million, so I'm going to sell mine for $1 million too. Except that his are not built out. You would need to demolish that. Let's look at the rest of the deal here. Okay, great. The real estate agent doesn't even tell us how much they could possibly rent out for. He just tells us 2 duplex for teardown. Okay, they admit that it's for a teardown. The lot is 6,000 square feet. Zoning for a duplex. New townhome sold on same street. Fantastic. Well, we cannot, or in this channel, we're not going to analyze what you could build, right? I can tell you that, yes, if you tear this down, you could probably build more than just a duplex. You could probably build a quad. You could probably build 2 stories, 3 stories. You would need to look at the zoning, but I mean, you could probably renovate this property. Let's look at the land here. All right, guys, can you see this? Let me see. Yeah, you can see it. All right, you might be able to get away with building some land right back here. President Trump just came out, not just President Trump, but the state of Florida has had this too. A lot of states have had this, where they're looking to build more housing, right? Because there's a housing shortage in the United States, right? And so they want to fix that, right? They want to make affordable housing. And so they're allowing owners to build accessory dwelling units, ADUs, right? Or additional dwelling units, some people like to call them, in the space of single family homes and of multifamily homes. So let's say you have a duplex here, but you have this lot back here. There are going to be new rules with like less setback to the road or to your neighbor, and they're going to allow you to build more homes. So the question here, I think, right, if you wanted to analyze this deal a little bit further, which we're not going to do today, is can you build more on that same lot? How much would it cost you to renovate the existing one? Can you build, right? Like how big can you make those units so you could rent them out for the most amount of money? And what can you build back here in an efficient way so you can get more income, right? Because like you saw right here, they built these duplexes here. But just because these guys on this lot built a 2-story duplex doesn't mean that that's the highest and best use of the land. They might have just thought that, right? So, or when they started building it, right? Because if it's done today, it means that it got planned years ago, guys. It might mean that now this corner one could be a quad. So with that being said, guys, the most that I think that this could rent out for in Miami-Dade, let's take a quick look, right? Because we also did that homework for you guys, so you don't have to. And I want to show you. So these are the averages for Miami-Dade and Broward counties, right? Let's say that you could have a 3-2 on the top. We don't know what the unit breakdown is, but let's say you have a 3-2 on the top and a 3-2 at the bottom, right? The median would be about $3,000. So would this property make sense currently the way that it's being sold, even if you fixed it and it was baller on the inside, right? Would it make sense? $3,000 here, $3,000 there, 0 here, put a 0 there. No, guys, this is a 0.6% kind of property. It doesn't cover your mortgage, right? It doesn't cover the debt. And you're capping less than 5%. You would not get your cash back before you even finish paying for the loan. You would start seeing cash flow after 21 years if you bought this FHA, right? After 11 years, almost 12 years if you bought this with a 20% down payment. And yeah, you would cash flow on day one if you bought this cash, but I mean, you could buy a box cash and rent it out to somebody that's moving from their house and cash flow, but we're not doing that, right? So this is a terrible deal too. So this is another hard fail. Whoopsies, hard fails right there. So let's go ahead and let's get rid of that property, discard it. Whoops. Here we go, guys. My apologies, gotta fix this here so you guys can see everything. Nice. And there we go. All right, let's look at the next property on the list. This one's in Broward County, guys. $775,000. Taxes. These taxes are really low, $2,337. That might be what they're paying, but believe me, you guys, if you buy this for $775,000, you will have higher taxes. To find out how you get what those taxes could be, this property is in Broward County, so you would go to a BCPA, Broward County Property Appraiser's Office. You could plug in, it's a duplex. The purchase price is this much, and it'll give you a pretty good estimate of what your taxes will be, right? I always encourage people to do that, especially if you're getting a loan, because the way that loans are underwritten, unless they're extremely low taxes, is that they will use the current property taxes. And so you don't want to get hit with a surprise later on and not be able to afford the house, or that you thought that the house was going to cash flow, and all of a sudden maybe it just breaks even, right? So with that being said, let's go ahead and see. Let's hide all this stuff so we could go over it one by one. And if in this case the property works out, they don't tell us what the rents are, so let's dive into the actual listing. But first, let's look at the pictures. All right, guys. So on the outside, it doesn't look bad. It looks like fresh paint. They do have their little, hurricane shutters there, which are nice. They're a nice discount on your insurance. On the inside, it looks dated. I mean, it's dated, right? This is dated. So it's going to require some TLC, guys. 1,800 square feet. You're going to need to update that. So, okay, let's look at the details. If they put any about the rents here. They didn't, but they at least let us know that they're 2-2s. Each 2-2 is about 920 square feet. And so a 2-2 in Broward County, guys, is probably, if you renovate this, right, which it's not, it's going to rent out about $2,300 on each side. I might be overinflating that, but it's a 2-2, right? I have a 2-1. I rent my 2-1 out for $2,250, but it's renovated. This gives you the utility of an extra bathroom, but without the bells and whistles. So what does that come out to, guys? Does it make sense on the calculator? Nope, it's not going to make sense. It's a 0.6, and like everything else, guys, it's not going to cover your debt at a 0.6. Your cap rate on this property, because the taxes are lower, turns out to be a 5. Okay, not bad. They're not terrible, actually. But still, it takes way too long to double your investment here, right? You can see the ROI there. It would take you almost 16 years to get positive cash flow on this property if you bought it using FHA. And even if you put a 20% down payment, it would take you 5.5 years to see some money. Okay? Yeah. If you actually finance this using FHA, it'll take you 29 years, basically the entire life of the deal, for you to get your down payment back. Not good. All right, guys. This property is also a big fat fail. Let's keep going. Our next property is also in Miami-Dade. This one is listed at $1,299,999. So $1.3 million. Taxes, $7,480. Square feet, 3,134. And yeah, that's enough space for a very comfortable triplex. So, it's unfortunately it's in a shitty flood zone, but let's see what the pictures actually look like. Okay, so it looks to be in a great neighborhood, guys. Right? You have this multifamily property here that they just built, right? This commercial multifamily. That means that there's investors that looked at the area, they believe in the area. There's something else being built here, guys. That it's obviously. So there's demand. There's going to be demand in the area. Otherwise, these people would probably not be, buying and building. So that bodes well for the community, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily a good deal. Okay, terrible, terrible pictures. I mean, I guess they're trying for you to see that, it's right in downtown. So there's like Little Havana area. Oh, I know that building very well. Yeah, I know exactly where this is. Sweet. Yeah, well, let's look at this property here. Yeah, okay. So they want 1.29999. Let's see what the breakdown of the properties actually. There's there's two ones, and there's one. It looks like it's a studio. Guys, just the way that this property is built out, I think that this is meant for. He needs to sell this as land, right? He needs to sell this as land and just tear that down and build something new to compete with the neighbors. Because at this price, and you probably need to do massive renovations on the inside. At this price, it's not gonna look very good. A 2-1 in this area, just so you guys know. Let's do this so you guys can see it. Here you go. You guys can see now. A 2-1, the median 2-1 in this area rents out for about $2,300. The max is going to be about $3,400 because it's so close to downtown. And let's say they're sort of nice. Let's say they're getting $2,700 for the 2-1s. And let's say for the 1-1, they're going to get, I don't know, $1,700. So 27 and 17. And I'm really exaggerating here, guys, but I'm trying to see if we could somehow make this deal look a little bit better, because it's not going to. This is like super best case scenario for this guy. And it's a terrible deal even at that, right? So you guys could see the investment meters are all like on the red. It's a 0.55. It doesn't cover your debt. It's below a 5 cap. It's just, it's bad. If you guys want to look at this, right? Like, you're not going to be cash flowing here if you buy this FHA until like until like year 22 or something, right? Yeah, 21 years and 3 months. So terrible. Let's discard this. Another fail for the books. And let's keep going. And don't get discouraged, guys. This is what you got to do every day. Most deals are going to suck. When I found my duplex, which by the way, right now kicks ass, right? It's giving me about $2,000 a month in income. My first duplex. Dude, like, I think I looked through the entire MLS. So like what I'm doing today, but imagine pulling all of the listings, right? With price decreases and everything. And I must have gone through about like 2,000. And out of those 2,000, I found maybe like 20 properties worth taking a look at. And then as I was going through them, some of them were going under contract, and I finally found mine. But yeah, guys, don't get discouraged. This is what we're here for. We're looking at these properties every single day. So next property up on the list, Broward County. This time they are renting it out. Let's reset this. They are selling it at $899,000. The taxes on this property are going to be $12,991. Square footage here, we're looking at 2,582 square feet. It's a duplex, so it's a large duplex. Now they are telling us that they're collecting, it's a flood zone X, built out of concrete block construction, which is nice. They are telling us that they're collecting $6,800 a month in rent here, guys. So not looking bad. Let's look at the pictures. Okay, these pictures look nice. Okay, this property looks nice. Nice yard, nice landscaping. Landscaping is always a really big plus, guys. If you guys read Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, it's one thing that he says that like really stuck out to me and that like really cemented this in my mind, was that if you're gonna sell a car, man, don't be lazy. Go out and clean the car. Well, landscaping is the same thing as cleaning your car, right? You want to. It doesn't cost a lot of money to get your grass cut and your trees trimmed, right? Or to plant some new sod. So if you're gonna be selling your house or renting your house, you want it to look good. This owner understands that. He got the message on simple and clean. Stainless steel, cheap stainless steel, right? These appliances are not the most expensive, but they look great. This guy has maximized this property. Wow. All right. He paved the backyard, painted the fence, This owner is cool. They even have a little shed down here to put like, you know, your stuff out there. Yeah, love the property. I'm not a fan of the McDonald's roof, right? The flat roof on the top, not great. But shoot, let's see how well this deal makes sense, guys. So with that being said, let's take a look at the deal. Oh wait, we didn't actually click on the listing. Let's click on the listing. Let's come down here. So it's a 2-2 rented at $29.50. There's another 2-2 rented at $2,900. And then he has a 1-1 rented at $1,000. Interesting. You probably make more on that 1-1. Wonder how big it is. Okay, well, this is interesting, right? Because he says that it's a renovated duplex, but he might have sectioned off part of the duplex to make it a illegal triplex, if you will. So let's see how well this property makes sense. Let's look at the Investimeter, guys. So where are you guys thinking that this 1% rule is going to land? 0.76. What does that translate into if it covers our debt or if it doesn't? It almost covers our debt. It almost covers our debt. It's capping above a 5, just, you know, 5.5. By the way, guys, if you could get this guy to lower his price a bit, right, this property would probably be doing pretty well. Okay, for finance, I still wouldn't recommend to finance this one. It just takes way too long to double your investment. You could find better property. Okay, for the amount of money that you put down, if you bought this cash, right, you would be spending about $900,000 today, and over the life of, you know, over 30 years, you would make almost $3 million, right? So it would multiply about a 3.2 equity multiple, or like a multiple on your investment. If you leverage this, of course, you know, you're getting 55 times your ROI there, but that's still not good, still not great. Let's keep going. Let's look at how long it would take you to cash flow. If you buy this FHA, it would take you 12 years to cash flow, guys. 12 years. Okay? To get your cash back, it would take you 25 years. If you bought a cash, 15. And then you could look how hard your money is working here on your cash on cash and your internal rate of return. Now, I want to show you guys something really quick. And that's going to be the difference that interest rates make. Remember that a couple weeks ago it was at 5.98? If we make this a 5.98, do you think that it covers, right? If we put this at 5.98, do you think that it now would cover or at least pay for the mortgage? Let's find out. 5.98. Dang, it wouldn't. I thought that it was going to do it. All right, not going to lie. All right, let's see if you do a 5.5. If you do a 5.5, would it cover your debt? Yeah, it would. It would cover your debt at a 5.5. What would the interest rate need to be so you could get a DSCR loan on this, right? That's a question. And most times a DSCR loan is going to have to look at like 1.2, right? Like your ratio would need to be like 1.2. Just if you were relying on interest rates alone, maybe a 4.5 would get you there. Nope. It would, 4? Yeah, 4. I don't think we're going to drop to a 4, guys, anytime soon. Hopefully we do. But if we do, you're going to want to buy this property below that, way before that. Because if you wait until it's a 4, this guy's not going to want $8.9 or $900,000 for it. He's going to want 1.1. So, all right, guys. This property, this property, I want to give it like a close, but it's still a fail. Unless you could get that price way down. Even though this property is gorgeous, man, like I would love to give it something better, but this property is still a fail. Let's keep moving. Whoops. Sorry guys, having to readjust some stuff here. All right. So is the one we just saw. Let's discard that. Our next property up on the block is $550,000. The taxes still look pretty cheap here, $4,741. Almost 2,000 square feet at 1928. Whoops, dyslexic there. 1928. It's in a flood zone AE, not the best. So you're gonna pay a little bit more for insurance, guys. There's no pictures of the property, so that sucks. He does tell us, however, that there's two twos, okay? Two bedroom, 2 bath, which for 2,000 square feet, they're probably nice size. We don't know what the property even looks like. Let's look at the property history. Okay, it's the first time that they ever listed, apparently, and they didn't rent it. So this is you need to call and find out what this property is actually looking like, guys. But it's in Broward County. I can tell you again, guys, that my 2-1 I rented for $2,300. Let's say if you could rent out their 2-2s, we don't know what this property looks like, but if you could rent out those 2-2s for $2,300 too, what does this property look like? Actually, I get $2,250. So let's put $2,250. Okay, guys. So I forgot to cap everything else, but let's do this and let's go one by one. 1% rule, it's a 0.82. It's not bad, okay? Let's see what it translates to. If this property, you could just turnkey buy it and rent it, right? For $2,250 each side, it would cover your debt. Nice, let's keep going. Cap rate, 6.5, not bad. Okay, if you buy this cash, it's right before it gets into a bad area, right? And anything bad is like more than like 11 years for me, guys, is bad because you might as well just put your money in the S&P 500 and it'll double your investment in the same amount of time, right? Or worse. Financed, it's not bad either, right? It's not great, but it's not bad. And so now you're starting to see the numbers that I like, guys. For FHA, right, you should be getting at least a 70% multiple on your investment because you're only putting 3.5% down payment, and over the life, right, this property, right, a 3.5% down payment is going to be like $18,000, and you're actually going to be getting $1.3 million in return for your $18,000, right? Almost a 70 times 700%. No, more than 7,000% return on your investment, right? And if you bought this cash, you're almost at a 4 time equity multiple, which is not bad. FHA, right, it would start cash flowing after 7.5 years. If you bought this using a 20% conventional loan, it would cash flow on day 1. That's nice, guys. That's nice. All right. Finance, again, to get your cash back, it would be about 15 years if you bought this using FHA for you to get all your cash back. And if you bought this using cash, right, it would take you about 13 years. It's not, you're looking for 10. 10 is great. If you can get your money back in 10 years, 13 is not terrible. All right. And check it out, guys. Your internal rate of return here for if you bought this FHA is 14.7 over the entire time that you have the property. That beats your S&P 500 by a long shot. Okay, so because we don't know the condition of this house, we don't have any pictures, and that I'm guessing is probably a strategy of the real estate agent because it probably doesn't look great. I'm gonna put this property as closed. All right, it's something that you want to go out and you want to take a look at. You want to call the agent. You want to go schedule a tour because you never know, guys. It might be a really great property. But for these case and purposes, it's just close. All right, so we're not going to delete this one. We're just going to go on to the next one. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one here. Oh, man. $1.1 million. They're saying that they're paying property taxes $3,900, so you better believe that number's going to go up. They don't tell us the living area. That's why it shifted to that. They say it's a duplex, and they say it's in a good flood zone, right? But we don't know a lot more information. Let's just take a quick look at the pictures. Is this a rendering? This is a rendering. I hate when real estate agents do this. So they'll post a rendering, right? Because what their listing actually is just land. And it's probably shitty. Rare opportunity to acquire a newly built duplex offering 2 spacious townhome style residences. This investor or owner occupant seeking income. Each unit offers approximately 1,676 square feet with a 3-2.5 layout, featuring bright open spaces, modern kitchens, yada, 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 yada. All right, so it's actually built. Not bad. So says he. This property, these pictures don't look like, this does not look like real pictures. Unless they digitally enhanced them and then they screwed it up, because I want to see what it actually looks like. Anyway, guys, all right. If that's the case, then the square footage is about, 3,200, 3,300 square feet? Let's just put it at that, 3,300 square feet. So your price per square foot here is 333. It's a 3-2.5, and it's completely renovated, and it's in Miami-Dade. Let's see where it is in Miami. I don't think that you guys can see this. Let me see. No, you guys can't see the pop-up that just came out. Try to have that fixed. All right, guys, but it is, all right. It's not in the hottest area of town, I'll tell you that. Right? Just for rent, for what you could get in rents here. But it's a 3-2.5. So let's look at what our, I see what happened there. Let's look at this. The 3-2 in Miami rents for about $3,000. All right, guys, it rents for about $3,000. The max, right? So you're talking like a 3-2 that's on the water and a condo rents for about $4,700. You're not going to have those amenities here. So let's say, because it's a 3-2.5, that you do get $3,000 for it. Will it pass? How does that look like on the Investimeter, guys? Let's find out. 3,000 each side. I mean, you guys don't have to be geniuses. It's going to be less than a 0.6. Let's just take a look at it. It's a 0.55, 0.75 is not even going to cover your debt. Bad cap rate, goes past the Investimeter, what it measures, like just a terrible investment. 20 years for you to start cash flowing, seeing cash. Even if you put a 20% down payment, you're not going to see cash coming into your pocket until after by year 11. Okay, you're never going to get your cash back, okay, that you actually invested, even if you FHA this property, and you're way better off just putting this money in the S&P 500, because at 6.67%, you're just doing terrible. So with that being said, guys, this is another hard fail. And I think that there was another property that we looked at that was also a fail, and I forgot to count it here, but let's just put it here. So guys, we've analyzed 8 properties today. Out of the 8 properties that we analyzed, 7 failed, hardcore, miserable fails. And there's one property that you guys got to go take a look at. We got to call the agent. We got to see what's going on with that property, just because there's no pictures. There's no pictures, but it could potentially be a great deal, right? You got to go out there. You got to look at the property. You got to see what you could do with the land, right? You got to see if you could renovate it. You got to see if you could, especially in today's day and age, if you could extend it, build an additional dwelling unit on the land, right? See what neighborhood it's at, see what the comparable rents in the area are going to be able to get you, right? Your real estate agent is going to be able to do all this stuff for you guys. So go out there, look at the deal, analyze it yourself. If you have any questions about any of the numbers that we saw today, let me know. Let me know in the comments, send me a message, and we will see you tomorrow, where we are going to be analyzing the properties that hit the market tomorrow, guys. All right.